Hey guys, this is the Great Jedi and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing good, and today I'm going to be ranking all 22 heroes and villains from worst to best in Star Wars Battlefront 2. This ranking will specifically be for the larger scale game modes like Galactic Assault and Capital Supremacy. And just remember that this is just my opinion based off of my experience from the game, and almost everyone is going to have a different opinion, so be sure to let me know how you'd rank these heroes and villains in the comments down below. With that said, I'm not going to be ranking these heroes off of who I'm best with, but rather how an average person would do with each hero. And what I mean by that is if you have a person that is equally good with each hero and they're equally leveled up the same, who would be the better choice in the most situations. Now before I get into the hero ranking, just keep in mind that all heroes and villains are pretty good, especially in the right situation, and are by no means bad even if they come in pretty low on the list. There are even some heroes that I have been debating on for a long time, like who would come in first or who would come in second for that tier, and some of the heroes could really go any way, but I tried to get as exact as possible with their strengths and weaknesses. With that said, I'm not going to be listing off all of their strengths and weaknesses, but rather some of the main ones to find their spot in the ranking. Also, if you guys like this type of content, please consider subscribing if you're new, because we are almost at 1,000 subscribers and over 80% of you guys that watch this content aren't even subscribed. So please subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Also, if you guys could help me out and you enjoyed the video, and only if you think I've earned it, please give this video a thumbs up. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, let's get right into the hero ranking. Now coming in to last place, number 22 as the worst hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2 is BB9E. BB9E came in last place because he is extremely situational. In fact, he's the most situational hero in the entire game. He doesn't have very many offensive abilities, and he has to be very close to his target to do any damage, and even then, the damage output is not enough compared to the other heroes. You would really have to dash back and forth while stunning your target, hoping you can get the kill before taking too much damage, and sometimes that can be really hard because he only has 600 health. Even with star cards, he doesn't have a lot going for him that can change him a whole lot compared to the other heroes. Normally, the star cards can really change a hero for the better, but his star cards are just on a different level compared to the heroes, although he isn't all bad and he actually has some strengths. He can be good for knocking people off of cliffs, being a good overall support hero by being annoying and stunning people, and using his speed in small hitbox to make him a very hard target to hit. But those strengths are just not enough to bring him up higher on this hero ranking. Now for our next hero that comes in the 21st place is Captain Phasma. Captain Phasma takes our next spot on this ranking because she can be an absolute beast with her droid, but that can also be a weakness. It really limits her movement, and if her droid gets destroyed, then she can die pretty fast. Her blaster has a fast rate of fire, but it is a spread machine that hardly does any damage at distance, even with her second weapon configuration. It really just tickles your opponent. As for her staff strikes, they have gotten a lot better over time and are actually pretty good. But even then, you have to get them at close range, and once you get that close, you take a lot of damage in the process. Although she does have a lot of health, her droid, and her health buff to stay alive longer, and the ability to lock down certain choke points. But once that droid is down, she's just a sitting duck if she sees any other hero. Now moving on to the 20th position, we have Chewbacca. I will say Chewbacca was probably the worst hero for Galactic Assault for a long time, but after several buffs, he has gotten a lot better, and one of those abilities that used to really suck but is actually pretty reliable now is his Charge Slam. Especially if you have damage reduction, because it can actually insta-kill infantry. But even then, with his Stun Grenade and Charge Slam, it's just not enough to put him any higher on this list because he just doesn't do well at mid to far range combat. He also can't take that many hits, and his blaster has a huge drop off in damage at range, but I will say that they have improved it dramatically over some updates, but it is still not where it should be. Next up on our list at 19th place, we have Boba Fett. Boba Fett has For the Hunt, which can really save his life and is probably one of his better abilities. I wouldn't say it would be the best because his best ability would be Rocket Barrage, and Rocket Barrage is a beast. What can I really say about it? It can really help you out in any situation if you have decent aim. As for his blaster, his E3 is pretty good, but there is a pretty big learning curve of how to aim right while flying. Even with those strengths, BOBA is just nowhere near the other blaster heroes. He can't take hits, and his jetpack is pretty unreliable because almost everything in the game can knock you out of the sky, and even with him being able to dash in the middle of the air to recover now, it is just slightly more reliable than the bad hit detection. I will say his abilities have been nerfed and buffed several times over the course of this game's life cycle, but I do feel like he is in a decent spot where he can use a concussion rocket and it be useful most of the time if it doesn't bug out. But it's like I said, there are just better villain options, and BOBA is just more of a one-trick pony. Now moving on to 18th place, we have Count Dooku. I know what you guys are thinking. What? Dooku's in 18th place? How is this possible? But just give me a minute to explain my reasoning. And the main reason why I put him so low on this list is because he has to get up close and personal to do anything, because there just isn't enough range on his lightning, and the reality is you're going to take a lot of damage if you're going against smart blaster users. I will say, if you do end up encountering in a 1v1 situation, or you have everyone grouped up really close together, then he can be an absolute beast, but for most of the game that's just not going to happen. All of his abilities are really good, but like I said, you just need to be up close and personal, and his right ability, Exposed Weakness, is extremely situational because you are most likely going to take so much more damage by doing that animation than dealing out the extra damage on that target that you activate the ability on. Coming up in 17th place, we have Finn. Finn is pretty good and can do some serious damage with his blaster, but with that, he does have a low rate of fire, and what really carries him to this spot is his Deadeye. And if you have the right star cards equipped, you can eliminate so many people with hardly any skill. Also, he has a nice health buff when you need it, but when it comes to big groups of enemies or enemy villains, he really has to worry about his positioning because one bad move can get him killed extremely fast since he doesn't have a whole lot of health. His right ability can be very useful, but is just too situational, and I hardly find myself using it because the situation hardly arises. He is just another one of those situational heroes where other blaster heroes can just do what he can, just in a better way with the exception of Deadeye. Now moving on to 16th place, we have General Grievous. Grievous has been pretty strong and has a clear line between his strengths and his weaknesses. He can pack a good punch with his unrelenting advance, thrust surge, claw rush, and even his basic attack. But he also runs out of stamina very fast and is on the slower side, with the exception of claw rush. He even has a good chunk of health, a good health regen pull, and even has a great selection of star cards. Although the one main reason that is holding Grievous back on this list is his bugs. He has been buggy ever since he was released, and they have done several updates where they tried to fix him, and they have succeeded in some things, but he is still pretty buggy, which can really impact how reliable he is as a villain. I will say, ever since they buffed Claw Rush from the last update, he has been really up there on the more powerful side since he has a star card which increases that damage, and you can get an entire group of enemies or even instant kill a hero with that one ability. With that said, he would probably be in the top 10 if he wasn't so buggy, but since all of his abilities don't work properly all of the time, it makes him extremely unreliable, which results in a lower ranking on this list because you really have to take into account the bugs when you're playing Grievous. Now next up we have Lando Calrissian in 15th place. The reason why he is in this place is because he has pretty good abilities, but they are situational. Although what really makes Lando higher than the other heroes on this list is his sharp shot ability, because he can take out a chunk of enemies with ease and not much skill at all if you know how to position yourself. And if a Saber hero gets near him, he can definitely hold his own with his stun and his smoke grenade if another hero is swing spamming him. Although he is not higher on this list because his blaster can take a big hit in damage at range, and his stun ability and smoke are really situational, as well as he can't take that many hits if someone gets too close to him. Now coming in 14th place, we have IDEN Versio. Versio is a pretty good, well-rounded hero and is probably one of the very few blaster heroes that is pretty good no matter what the situation is, without being completely worthless or completely OP. She has her secondary fire, which can destroy at range and melt blocking heroes. And if the secondary fire is still not enough range for her, she has her pulse cannon, which has come a very long way since launch and is pretty good since she doesn't have to charge it up all the way anymore. As for close range combat, she has her TL50, which can really melt anyone in her path, and as for her defenses, she has her shield and her shock droid to take on any heroes that try to get up close and personal with her. With her stun droid, she can hold her own against a swing spamming hero and continue to dominate at close or far range. Although if she does manage to miss with her droid or gets ragdolled as a lightsaber hero is being stunned, then she can really struggle to hold her own between the saber heroes and the rest of the enemy team. Now for 13th place we have Leia Organa. Leia can be an absolute beast in the right hands and has come a long way since launch. She probably went from being one of the worst heroes in the game to one of the best, and I have got to say she is a force to be reckoned with. Her E11 melts infantry, reinforcements, and heroes in just seconds, and she has a lock-on secondary fire if she needs to fight at range. Her thermal detonators can take out groups of enemies or take out a blocking saber hero with more than half of their health, and she has a pretty decent health regen pool. Not that she even needs a good health regen pool, because her shield now allows her to recover all of her health back and all of her allies, and just this one ability can completely change the tide of almost any battle. Although if she doesn't have her shield handy, or if she is face to face with a saber hero, then she can die very fast because she doesn't have a whole lot of health and can't take very many hits. Now next on our list is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he comes in 14th place. He has a good health pool, a very good health regen pool, and has amazing blocking stamina, and he can just deflect for days. He has a mind trick which restricts your opponent's abilities, which can really save you from some tough situations, but you have to be careful when you use it because the animation to use the ability can cause you to take a lot of damage, which can turn into a weakness. Obi-Wan also has the ability to take care of himself at long range with his long range force push and his dash ability that blocks all incoming fire when he closes the distance to finish attacking them at close range. He is an overall great hero, but he just isn't as good as some of the other heroes because other heroes can do what he can do, but just overall better. Some of the things that holds Kenobi back to this spot is his slowing swing speed and his lower damage output. Now coming into 11th place as the best light side blaster hero in the game is Han Solo. Han Solo is pretty good in almost every situation. His only weakness is that he can't take very many hits and he doesn't have very good health or a good health regen pool, but he can take care of himself in close or far combat. Obviously he would be better at far combat, but he can still take care of himself with his rolls, his shoulder charge to knock enemies down, then he even has his detonite charge that can knock them back on the ground again, and then while they get back up, he can just shoot at them with his all-powerful DL-44. Although he is even better at far range because his DL-44 is a beast at far range and hardly has any drop off damage at all, and his detonite charge can just take on entire groups of enemies, so you can just see how Han can just be an absolute beast in almost every scenario. Now we're officially moving on to the top 10, and the 10th spot goes to Rey. Rey has a good health regen pool and average health regen, but what really sets her apart is her swing speed, stamina, and her unique abilities. Insight can be an absolute game changer when you need to see through all the walls to see your opponents, as well as it giving you more stamina. Her mind trick is great at confusing almost everyone, and for the people it doesn't confuse, their movements become very predictable, and then she can just follow up with her dash strike, which knocks down enemies. Overall, Rey is pretty good, but she just doesn't quite stack up with the other saber heroes because she just really lacks in range combat, because even if she tries to close up the gap with her dash strike, she can take tons of damage. Now coming in at the number 9 spot we have Grand Master Yoda. Master Yoda is just an absolute small beast that not very many people will see coming. He not only has a small hitbox which makes him extremely hard to hit, but he also jumps around when he attacks, which even makes it harder. He has the ability to dash through heroes' blocks, buff himself and nearby allies, as well as being able to charge up his force push, which can destroy several groups of enemies. Although his main weakness is that his swing speed is pretty slow and that he does not have the greatest health regen pool, so if you lose a lot of damage it's going to take a while to get it back, but even then he has his buff ability which can really save him in tough positions and can get out of immobilizing effects like KYLO's freeze, Vader's choke, and many more. Now coming into the number 8 spot we have the Trandoshan BOSSK. Now I know what you're all probably thinking, BOSSK? How could he be this high on the list? but let me tell you, if you play him correctly, he's an absolute well-rounded beast. He has a sniper for long range, his Dioxis to clear out rooms and take out several groups of enemies, his mines can also take out several enemies, heroes, and even block off certain objectives, all while he has a close range shotgun and even has his Predator instincts that can be used for a long time with the right star cards, and they can destroy several people including blocking saber heroes. BOSSK is just a great well-rounded hero that is good at crowd control, which is really helpful in these larger scale game modes. Not only that, but he can take care of himself in almost every situation, whether that's close range or far range, as well as having the ability to completely regen all of his health from even 1 HP. But notice I said almost every situation because that is also where his main weakness lies, and that is if he gets really close to an enemy lightsaber hero or gets ragdolled, then he is pretty much dead because he doesn't have very much health to begin with, and if he gets pulled by Anakin, then it can be over really quick. I'm talking the amount of time it takes to blink. Now, we are getting into the heroes that are extremely good in basically every situation and can be unstoppable in the right hands. These heroes have hardly any weaknesses and they could really go any way when it comes to some of these rankings. Now, starting off with the top tier heroes, we have Darth Maul coming in at number 7. Darth Maul has very many strengths, one of which is his speed. Not only can he move very fast and is very hard to hit, but he also has a very fast swing speed to deal with anyone at close range, and he has his dashes which can get him in and out of tough situations while doing major damage to anyone in his path. Not only is he good at close combat, his abilities allow him to excel at range combat as well, such as his saber throw, dashes to close gaps, and even his force choke. Although his force choke can be a huge weakness for him because he is standing still in that animation with no damage reduction, so if he misses, then that can be the death of him. He just comes shy of the top 5 because he also doesn't have the greatest stamina or health regen, which really hurts him in these types of modes. Now, someone else that is just coming up shy of the top 5, coming in place number 6, is Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren has several strengths, but not really any weaknesses. He's pretty much good in any situation. He's good at range combat with his freeze, pull, and even his frenzy. The only downside that I can think of between those abilities is that sometimes frenzy makes you vulnerable, so if you end up going against another saber hero, they might be able to punish you, but the chances of that happening in these modes are slim. He has decent health, a good health regen, and he dominates at close range with his fast swing speed and his crazy damage output. The only reason why he didn't make it in the top 5 is because the heroes in the top 5 are just crowd control masters where they clear out rooms without any hesitation and are just overall better in these types of modes. Now, moving on to the top 5, in spot number 5 we have BB-8, and stay with me, don't click off of the video yet, let me explain. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this opinion, but he is probably better than what you think, especially with all of his star cards upgraded. BB-8 has a really small hitbox, so he is hard to hit, and he is able to sneak into a room of enemies without even being noticed. He has a wall hack so he can locate enemies, and he is the ultimate objective hero because he has 3 passive abilities. He is extremely fast, and his main attack does decent damage. His main attack is not to the point where it's sucky or OP, I would say it's just about average, but what makes him so deadly is his speed combined with his middle ability, which can melt heroes and take on entire groups of enemies with ease. Although, all of his attacks I mentioned are at close range, and at far range he can also be a beast with his right ability. His right ability instant kills infantry, and even if he misses his target, he just closes the gap and is close enough to take out the enemy. Overall, BB-8 is an amazing hero that can completely change the tide of battle with his speed, stealth, hitbox, and damage output. Now, coming in at the number 4 spot on this list, we have Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is one of the best light side choices because he can destroy at close and far range. He can even do more damage with the right star cards. He has his force push, his repulse, and dashes that he can use at mid to close range, and he has a fast swing speed with some really good damage output with his saber attack, which can really destroy anyone in his path. As for his weakness, it would mainly be his animation for repulse because it leaves him vulnerable, but even that is kind of a stretch for a weakness because if you know how to position yourself well, you can do some serious damage with that ability no matter what you're going against. Now, rolling into the top 3, we have Darth Vader. Darth Vader has received several buffs and nerfs over the course of this game, and they left him in a pretty dang powerful spot. Seriously, he is an absolute tank with over 1,000 health if you have the right star cards. He even has a pretty good health regen pool, and his only weakness is him being a little bit on the slower side, but he is not slow enough for it to make a huge difference. He has decent stamina, and if he runs out, Focus Rage will give him more, as well as giving him a health buff and causing him to do even more damage. At close range, he does tons of damage between his basic attack, lightsaber throw, and his force choke. He even has some of the deadliest combos in the entire game, so if you encounter Darth Vader, you better have some backup, because even if he just has a couple teammates near him, you can be dead with just one force choke, because during that ability, he has damage reduction, he can block, he can use his abilities, he can attack, and his team can even attack you while you're being stuck in one spot. As for long range encounters, he has a saber throw and force choke to wipe out any enemies that are in his way. With that said, Darth Vader is great for just about any situation. Now, at the number 2 spot, we have Emperor Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine can be almost unstoppable in just about every situation, just like Vader, if you know how to use him. He's not the best at close range, but between his speed, jumps, his ride ability, and his dashes, he can create that distance very fast. He really shines at mid to long range combat, and he can destroy a blocking saber hero stamina with his basic attack, and his middle ability goes right through their block. There are even times where there is a bug that works to your advantage, and the lightning will go right through the hero's block, which can really impact how good he is. He also has chain lightning that can destroy entire rooms of enemies. It's not even as good as it used to be, but it is still one of the best abilities in the entire game. So between his basic lightning and his chain lightning attacks, he can wipe out tons of enemies without even trying. Even then, you don't even need a whole lot of skill to use him, because you just have to jump around the map and aim in the general direction, and he will just go on this killing spree. Now, in our number 1 spot as the best hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2 is Anakin Skywalker. And was that even much of a shock? Do I really have to explain what makes this guy so good? Alright, I'll explain it for those people that don't already know. His heroic might ability is just about the best in the game, and he can destroy all infantry in his way with the right star cards. This is so powerful because he has damage reduction as he's charging this ability, and the more he charges it and takes damage, the bigger the radius gets, so it can seriously take out entire rooms of enemies with the push of a button. He also has some of the best ragdoll combo abilities in the game, like his pull heroic might combo, which can do some serious hero damage. Just his pull alone can do some serious damage, but if he has his team near him, that can just be the death of you almost instantly. He has a ton of health, a good health regen pull, a fast swing speed, huge damage output, as well as him being pretty fast and having decent stamina. And if that's not enough reason to put him at the top for close range and far range combat, he has his right ability, Passionate Strike, that goes through heroes' blocks, and has a 4th ability called Retribution, which also grants him damage reduction and gives him the ability to do a 360-degree force choke and force push. Pretty insane, right? As for his weakness, I don't really think he has any, except for maybe when he bugs out, because once in a while where I used his heroic might ability, I couldn't do anything. Literally, I couldn't swing, use my abilities, block, nothing. I just had to run around capturing the command post or capturing the objective without getting shot, and you can guess how well that turned out. Even though these bugs can be hard to come by as Anakin, they do still happen, but not often enough to put him lower than the number 1 spot. He's just good in any situation, and I mean any situation, and if he didn't have any bugs, who knows how much better he could be. Anyways, if you guys like this hero ranking video, then let me know, because I would love to do more specifically for the hero modes, which will completely change this ranking a whole lot, and maybe even other rankings going over my favorite heroes and who I'm best with. So let me know if this is something you guys are interested in seeing down below. Now, with all of that out of the way, be sure to subscribe, like, or dislike the video depending if you liked it or not, and if you didn't like it, please leave your constructive criticism in the comments down below, so I'll be making my next hero ranking video even better. Also guys, just remember that this was my opinion, and all the heroes are really good in the right situation, and it got really hard to rank some of these heroes, so I would love to hear your opinion. I'm really looking forward to seeing your guys' hero rankings for the large scale game modes in the comments down below. I'm sorry I sound a little tired today, but anyways, I'll catch you guys later, and may the force be with you always.